With the rise of AI, isn't it time for technology to give you that extra weekend day you've always wanted? That could be in your future. I'm Sarah, this is Bill Track 50, Beyond the Bill Number, and this week we're looking at our issue voter bill for April, the 32-hour Workweek Act. Welcome, Stephen.
Hello, Sarah. Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living. As Dolly so wisely pointed out, yes, the time-old discussion, wouldn't we rather be working less?
As an American, the answer to that is always yes. Shorter work hours and more vacation, please. So, my first question here is how did we end up with the schedules that we find as normal today?
Well, you can look back some 10,000 years to our hunter-gatherer ancestors. Now, they only actually hunted and gathered for maybe 4 or 5 hours a day, and the rest of the time they spent partying, telling stories, and so on. When humans started farming, maybe 10 to 5,000 years ago, that was when the hard work really started. But people were still working as and when it was needed, so they worked more at harvest time than they would during the winter and so on. But the Industrial Revolution brought the first factory work and the need for everybody to be working the same number of hours on a set number of days. So at first, that was absolutely brutal. They'd work 10, 14
Oh
hours a
my
day,
gosh.
6 days a week, including small children. And people quickly got fed up with that. And there was a worldwide movement to reduce working hours and improve working practices. And the US was at the forefront of that. And it culminated in the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 that established the right to a minimum wage and overtime pay when working more than 44 hours a week.
44? I thought you were supposed to be working 40 hours a week.
Well, yes. Congress amended the law in 1940 to reduce the work week to 40 hours, and it stayed like that ever since as a cornerstone of US labor law until maybe now, because if we see this bill pass, we could see the standard work week cut down by 8 hours or an entire day. So Thursday becomes the new Friday.
I know I could always use that additional day to get things done around my house. One day for house, one day for social, one day for laying like I have a Victorian illness. Does this bill just flat out say that we should only work 4 8-hour days a week and just kind of call it that?
Not really. I mean, it's not quite that rigid. So if employees work over the 32-hour threshold or longer than 8 hours a day, then their employers would have to compensate them at least 1.5 times their usual per hour rate. And for employees working longer than 12 hours a day, the compensation rate would increase to double their usual per hour rate. And the act would take effect in yearly increments. So employers would have to lower their standard work week by 2 hours per year over a period of time.
I know that Senator Bernie Sanders is kind of spearheading this effort in the Senate, and there's been studies all over the world with some incredibly successful ones coming out of Iceland, New Zealand, and recently the UK, showing that cutting the time that people are required to work can have some pretty amazing impacts on their quality of life, fulfillment at work, enjoyment of their job, all of those kinds of things. And it can actually increase worker productivity. What do people who are kind of against the 4 day work week say?
Well, there are a number of reasons why this might not be the best idea. So, by removing 20% of the work week and not reducing pay proportionally, which of course is what the Bernie Sanders bill does, it could fuel inflation by effectively increasing pay by 20% across the board overnight, which businesses might then pass on through higher prices, which would further fuel inflation. It could also exacerbate existing labor shortages as companies would need to hire more staff when they can't find enough staff to do the jobs they need right now. And it would also drive up costs, of course, which would impact small business in particular who have sort of very narrow margins. There are certain sectors as well, such as retail or healthcare, where they need a lot of people providing service all the time, and they could really struggle to keep their services running.
Yeah, I was thinking with the if you work a shift more than 12 hours, how that might impact doctors, because I was like, wait, doctors always work more than 12 hours. So those are pretty good points. And I'm sure that all the previous changes, like increasing minimum wage, are met with similar arguments. And how are we seeing that these have worked out?
Well, yes, the employers will always say that if you increase sort of protections for people in the workplace, or you increase wages and so on, then it will make their lives difficult. And but these things do tend to work out, and certainly the trials that have happened show that often you don't get a lot of these negative impacts from it, and people are happier, they're healthier. They are more productive in a lot of ways. And of course, they have more time to do the things they want. So it can generally be of benefit. And the world of work, of course, is changing. You've got increased automation. You've got the introduction of AI that's going to explode over the coming years. You've got people being able to work from home more and more and actually not go into offices. So it does seem that the current trend to more flexible work patterns will continue, and that shorter working weeks may well become the norm for some, if not all of us. The key challenge, though, is to ensure that these benefits don't only accrue to white collar workers, and that everybody gets to enjoy more time away from work, doing whatever it is that they enjoy. So personally, I say bring it on.
I agree. I agree. Well, thank you so much, Stephen, and thank you for watching or listening. Build Track 50 Beyond the Build Number is available for a podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts, as well as Substack and TikTok, at least until we get banned.